Hello, this is Ege, and I'm the author of an original work called Ranger's Diary. And I'm going to read probably the entire book to you. I hope that it goes well and that you will enjoy. This is the first chapter, My Semi Blessed Life. Thank you for listening. His name was Vlad, the Vlad. In the Western continent, also known as the Blade continent, Vlad was more than an urban legend. Vlad knew everything. Vlad knew of everyone, and so everyone. If Vlad was looking for you, your soul was in trouble, and you better pray it was only you he would be taken to the afterlife. He had many faces and many stories. In some of them, he was a little frail troll lady, in some he was a fearsome dire wolf, in others he was a malicious shadow that would curse you, your progeny, and ancestor's soul to hell for eternity. Kids heard the stories about him when they were naughty. Careful what you do, or Vlad might take you and your family. There was a surefire way of making a child cry and an adult get a cold shiver down their spine. What was true about Vlad? All of it. He was the leader of a crime syndicate, spread far and wide, and did not cover just the Western continent. Even as a Loma, a race of bone giants usually covered in runes, gems, metal ornaments, and shiny trinkets to better identify each other, Vlad was very tall, standing at 3.25 meters of height and with wide shoulders. While Vlad also had magic runes carved in his exoskeletal skin, they were not visible, being exactly the same cloud white of his skin. The vast man was looking at the snowstorm howling out of his big rectangular window, wrapped in his bespoke triple-breasted pinstripe gray suit and heel-length light brown leather coat with fur lining and fur trim. Vlad caressed his majestic, shiny walrus mustache that looked painted in dark brown on his otherwise ghostly canvas-white face. On his right hand, a thick dark brass-colored chain was tightly wrapped 7 times exactly, not one more, not one less, a ruby-red pendant dangling under his pinky. Vlad was not a man to get scared or even show feelings, but he was hesitating now, looking worried and bothered. The roaring fire popping violently in the heart of the wooden cabin was not transmitting any heat to his soul or mirth to his mind. For as many times as Vlad had divined the fates, it never got easier. Being a diviner was one of Vlad's many secrets, a rare and unusual trait bound to the soul of an individual more than a magical act. Vlad clenched both of his fists and slammed them hard on his chest, making the glass on the window tremble dangerously with a thundering sound. He sighed deeply, then walked resolute with surprisingly light steps towards the giant door of the cottage. The air outside did not buffet his face, nor did the snow deposit on his skin, falling limply at his feet, instead of daring touching his skin. Vlad had to take just a few steps to reach a completely black tarry cabin, barely bigger than his whole body. Vlad had to hunch over to pass the door, and as his hand touched the door handle, a tremor made his fingers quake for a moment. Vlad granted that weakness away, but he was visibly sad, growing more pensive with every step. As he entered a completely dark room, Vlad kneeled down on an immaculate red velvet kneeling pillow and whispered, Luchola. The household spell was enough to release a candle's worth of light, but a good part of it seemed to be absorbed by the black walls, making the room look bigger on the inside than it actually was, like bound in a devouring darkness. In front of Vlad, a magic circle containing a star with 8 points was permanently etched on the floor that seemed to be made of old, leathery hide, the type one would expect on the outside of an armor. The giant man raised his right hand flat to the star, while he kept the left fist to his heart, in what seemed an act of contrition. The chain on his right hand started to come undone, but not because Vlad moved any. One for the earth you walked on, one for the heavens that should embrace you, one for the unresting souls I doomed, one for the breaths you will never take, and one for the tears I have to cry again, asking for your forgiveness." There were indeed tears slowly streaming down the man's cheeks, gathering in midair, gobbling each other up, forming a perfect shiny bubble, overing a chest height, surrounded by the loose chain spirals that seemed shining with their own light in an endlessly flowing motion. "Hello, spirit. What is that you wanted to tell me?" The chain moved in response, emitting noises, but not words. The words only Vlad could hear, not with his body, but with his soul. A ghostly Loma face appeared under the light, the orb lodged on his forehead, at a hairline. "Hello, Father. It's been a long time. I was hoping I wouldn't need to talk to you anymore. But some new voices are demanding your attention. Powerful voices. I suspect this is a message from the gods." "The gods, no less. Since when do we care for those lowly ones?"
"We do not. But they are saying that there is something coming on the horizon. Massive changes. Tormentera might not recover."
"So serious. And what do they want from me?"
"You know they would never dare to want anything from you, Father. But they would be very grateful, they say, if you could arbiter and get involved in these times of change. Their messages are cryptic as per usual. They want you in play."
"What is there for us, spirit?"
The voice hesitated for a moment, then looking into Vlad's moist eyes to find courage, he said, "Some of the voices promise my release."
"I see. That is a very big promise. To the heavens?"
"To the heavens and beyond, Father." Vlad's eyebrow raised for a moment, then relaxed at his next controlled inhale.
"I am ready. Needless to say, should they disappoint me, I will be very motivated towards devastating resolutions."
"They are aware, and they are thankful for your self-restraint so far."
"No one cares. Either way, thank you, spirit. So, what should be my next step?"
Vlad wanted to say son, but he had made a promise to the fates that he would not use their word until he managed to release his soul. Until then, Vlad's own soul would be the one of darkness, a monstrous creature stealing others' destiny and breaking the natural bonds of Tormentera until he had created enough mayhem to force whomever he needed to release the spirit of his poor boy. "Go back to the Empire and search. You see this little girl. She is alive. It is up to you if she stays this way. All the gods seem to want from you is for you to find her and make up your mind."
"She does not seem like she's in the Empire."
Vlad looked at the little girl for a long time, inside of the blue orb, trying to gather any possible detail that could help him locate her. There were none. If he had to guess, some of the gods wanted her alive. Some might want her dead. As such, some wanted her hidden, while some wanted her found. But Vlad was Vlad. He could only do what he wanted to.
"Goodbye for now, spirit."
Vlad was done, not wanting to stay in the spirit realm longer than he needed. He released the enchantment, and the chain fell limply, but stopped before touching the hide, wrapping back onto his thick, powerful hand. The burly man stood up, carefully exiting the cupboard and locking it with a twirl of his hand, mumbling an enchantment too quietly to be heard. Vlad then turned around and reached with his hand in the snow of the storm. He gathered under his hand, and an enormous cresp, a wolf-like herbivore creature with gazelle horns, formed out of the storm, wanting to be petted, kneeling to the Loma.
"Hello, Chestnut. Fancy a ride?"
The cresp whined approvingly, nuzzling against the man's palm.
"Good boy, Chestnut. Let's go then."
Vlad hopped onto the cresp's back, a hint of a smile crossing his face. The gods might be desperate or stupid to get him involved, but it mattered none to him. The end line was in sight, and they will deliver on their promise. Or else. As Vlad hopped on the cresp's back, they both disappeared again in the snow. No prints left behind. No sound. Somewhere else in the eastern continent, "Ferrus, wait for me!"
I shouted after my little brother as he was zigzagging through the alleyways in between the shops with grey or black rock foundations and wooden tops. The side road was cluttered with small and ornate metal trash cans that were all unique, looking like sculptures, and trapdoors that led to the basements or storages. You speed up, Harry. I want to see the weird people. The weird people Ferris was talking about were the initiates of the Church of Salcedo, one of the most popular religions on Tormentera. The Salcedo people adore the sun, the purity of body and spirit, and had deep-rooted beliefs that shadows and umbral magic were temptations of the archdemons. If that sounded like fun to you, chances are you could be in the church as well. Congratulations! I, Argentum Vildo, was never going to join any church, nor would I even be allowed to use magic as, you guessed it, I had been tested as a child and I had a major affinity for umbral magic, the forbidden fruit. We both kept on running. The light hit both of our faces as we were trying to slow down. Barefooted, our talons freely pawing at the soil underfoot, leaving marks and raising red-brown dust. My brother Ferris was too slow though, due to the temporary blindness, and I saw him bounce back in the alley and crash with his bum on the floor after bumping into one of these initiates. The monk in front of us was a tall man in loose wrapping robes of gold and pink with big floppy earlobes and a big droopy nose as he was a rakshasa looking like a primate with ramrod posture. The top of the monk's head where the powder used for marking the initiates had been applied was shiny red. When my brother bumped into him, part of the powder had rised in a puff and dribbled on his shoulders where more powder was already. Noticing my little brother, the initiate stopped his chanting and marching, and while he did not attempt to help Ferris getting up, he smiled kindly, but to me it seemed not genuine. I peered at the initiate's expression to better get a feeling for what to say next. His eyes and bushy eyebrows were extremely relaxed, like there was nothing in the world that could ever perturb him, but the deadpan stare of irritated superiority was harder to disguise, I guess. The noble monk was covered in sweat spots, as it was the beginning of summer, and none of the low buildings were providing any shadows to the main road. And even if they did, the salute for the church of Solacida was, "Always walk towards the sun," to which one should reciprocate with, "May the shadows never find you." That meant that even trying to find refreshment in the shadows was frowned upon for the true believers. To me, as a 12 years old, that sounded crazy bananas. "Don't you worry, little brother. Everything is fine. Run along and beware your steps now," the monk said to Ferris, roughing up his hair playfully. The priests of Solacito were never good news, if you ask me, and he called him little brother. He was my brother, dear sir. I did not see you at the dinner table having to deal with him crying your ears off when he wanted to drink his milk as a newborn. I grabbed Ferris by the armpits, helped him up, and hugged him from behind after dusting him off. Ferris's tail was wrapping my legs, searching for my tail. I was staring dart at the monk, even though technically it was not his fault. "We are sorry for any trouble. We will be careful, sir," I said to him, tight-lipped, putting a little extra sauce on the sir. The rest of the initiates were chanting, "Risen was the yellow sun, Father of love and washer of sins," again and again, celebrating getting closer to the midday sun. As the procession kept moving along through our town, Laurelwood, it eventually exited through the north and moved towards the next town over, Morel. The big sun emblem at the front of the initiate's robe to indicate the sun was always in front of them, with rays of sun still running along the back and down their tunics to their heels. That was all very mystical, and I mean, good for them, feeling like they are the chosen ones or some sort of big deal, but I did not trust most of them religions. If they were all correct, and all of them were the representative of the one true God, then who was wrong? I mean, most of their religions did mention the demons to some degree, but did anyone go around claiming they worship demons? And yes, I could hear my own inner monologue. It was judgmental, but do give me some credit. The big three churches were not charitable. They were barely helpful, and to my knowledge, very belligerent towards the infidels, always ready to cast them aside and blame them for things going poorly or the sins of the world. Why, though?
Were the gods also not tolerating each other and fighting to the death? Either way, I never met any of them, and until then, I could only say, I do not care and I am just glad gods exist. Why? So that people in the village had someone to pray to or blame when things went wrong instead of bothering each other. The rest of the day was mostly uneventful. I had decided not to go hunting or searching for food in the forest, as I had done a lot of it in that week already, and our refrigerator was already full. I stayed out to play in the fields instead, at the edge of our forest until the sun started to go away, which was about 7 in the evening. Ferris and I went shortly home when we needed snacks, and also to let our parents know we were still alive. That night, we were all around the dining table eating a nice limpus stew. Limpuses were lovely feathered small lizards that made eggs. I regret saying that they were quite smart and we kept many of them around, but they were also delicious, and when they died of natural causes, they did find their way into the pot. The stew Dad cooked that evening had cocoa powder, cinnamon, cooking wine, mushrooms, and root veggies, among the other ingredients. I loved it, served with either bread or rice. The particular batch that we were having was served with rice, and I liked to squeeze lime or lemon on top of it. Yum. We were all eating with gusto around the table. My mum Erin was the village's healer, a troll something woman with braids in her hair, mustard yellow skin, proudly strong for a healer. Actually, not just for a healer, as she could take on my father in arm wrestling. Mum loved going in the forest to find her herbs and mushrooms firsthand, so she had to be in shape, even though I helped quite a bit in that period. She was the most beautiful woman in the world to me, of course, and she gave the best hugs. You know how some kids don't like being hugged by their parents? I was not one of those. My mum had a pierced lower lip, a stud poking out of it, and two rings in each eyebrow, full lips, strong chin, and a beautiful nose that seemed painted it was so perfect for her face. Not too big, not too prominent. My father always joked that her nose had been adjusted with some healing spell a little too much. That usually ended with him being at the receiving end of a disapproving look, or worse. Dad was a big hobgoblin trollop instead, tall, with wide shoulders, callous hands that he used on the hammers many hours per day before cooking us dinner. His skin was black, his arms and neck had old scars from some skirmish or another that he did not want to tell us about, but he still told us of the scars that happened while hunting, like the one on his left hip, clear sign of 3 claws, one next to the other. His face was rounder than Mum's, with big ears, like ours, on the flatter side. He's almost pointing downwards at the tips. Dad also had long hair, very light in color, between blonde and white. His beard was soft and plush, contrary to what you might expect from a blacksmith working with fire most of the day. Yes, Dad did not get to craft as many weapons as he would have dreamed of in our small town, but all in all, crafting for the village hunting weapons and farm tools was rewarding in its own way. At least that's what he said. Also, Dad taught both me and Ferris how to hunt, track, stay in ambush, find drinkable water, start fires, and clean the house. He was a great dad, but he was also sometimes very strict with us, raising his voice. Never to the point of screaming, just to make sure we were listening and would do as he said, and quick, as he too often reminded us. Ferris, like me and Dad, was a trollop on the taller side for his age of 6, with white hair like Dad and Mum's cheeks and eyes. Sadly for him, the nose was Dad's, big potatoey one, only smaller as he was a child. Ferris and I had light yellow-greenish skin, and he was missing both of the bottom middle incisors, which made eating soup quite challenging and a nightmare when it was time to do laundry. I can proudly say I had Mum's nose, but everything else was like that, including the white shoulders. Trolls and trollops usually had tails, which could be pierced at the tip, as it was the fashion. None of us had tail piercings, as they were not practical. After dinner, we got to play board games, after we helped Mum with the dishes. Playing was a serious matter in our family. We played all sorts of board games, but the family's favorite was Wild Forest. In Wild Forest, you had a pack of animals to manage to get to the best score. The birds had to find prey, The Shuksa's bear protected the pack's territory, and green slugs grew crops. Claiming hunting grounds early was very important, but it was only possible if you managed to recruit enough creatures in your pack by turn 2 or 3, when usually players tried to get the hunting grounds. All animals in the game were those around our area, so before playing them, we read the trivia written on the card. I loved winning the game, of course, but Mum and Ferris were also very good at it, while Dad was lucky in love, I guess. It's not like he never won, but he sometimes lacked the killer instinct necessary to achieve success, while he never really lost at last place either, as he was very good at defending himself from the traps and attacks of other players. Bedtime always came too soon when we were having fun. The hot chocolate helped getting sleepy, and Dad put cinnamon in it. It was creamy and comforting, especially when wrapped in blankets. Mm, I loved that big cottage. It was one of the biggest in the village, and it made me feel happy just by being in it. As Dad built it on 2 floors, which was rare in a village, we had the upper floor just for the bedrooms, so Mum and Dad could still walk downstairs without waking us up. From the outside, people said it looked like a sailboat, with its complex wooden spirals and the clothes hanging on the rooftop. Stone was well hidden by the wood, though, to make the house sturdier. I was pretty sure Dad had used some durability spells that he knew for the weapons on all of our house and furniture, as in spite of mine and Ferris's best effort, the furniture was still mostly intact. Last thing I remember from that night, before being in bed after brushing my teeth with Dad telling us the story of the little car cheater and the robbers. You know, the one where he wins back the village from the robbers, and they are so baffled that they are convinced to leave, and on the way out of the village, they are arrested. That said, the morale was that not all heroes wore armor and had cool weapons, but sometimes were just the ones that had the right ideas at the right moment and kept in mind what was important instead of always wanting to look cool. Yeah, I had a happy life. Then, while I was supposed to be asleep, I heard a voice call out to me, clear as day.
Wake up. You are dead. This is the Maya.
This is the end of chapter 1. Here are some words that you might be wondering what they mean. Rakshasa, one of the main races of Tormentera, vary in shape and height as they have animal features of furry, feathery, or scaly creatures, while bipedal. Trollop, a troll of any mixed blood that still looks mostly like a troll. Shuksa bears named after Philip Shuksa, a ranger of the wild in the eastern continent that spent most of his life among these grey, furry, mid-sized bears that use stones as projectiles to defend their territories and feeding grounds. Thank you for listening. See you next time.